Dragon Ball getting stronger from signing in Chapter 281 to 300. Chapter 286 Top 16. Chapter 286 Top 16, 5, please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. Zhang Qian, on the other hand, looked at the opposite side blankly. At this moment, Chumo fell down on the ring, and started as if there was no one else around. Consolidate cultivation. You fail like this. Between the rise and fall of the rabbit, it was dizzying, and everyone in the audience just quietly watched everything that happened. It was only then that there was a loud bang. Turn defeat into victory, defeat the strong with the weak. This is the result. Everyone just felt that it was unexpected, but they felt that everything was reasonable. All of a sudden it is a combination of pride. Never give up, this is the way to fight. This is the mentality of the strong. When everyone was in the stands again, Zhang Qian had walked down the stage sadly. Whoosh, several figures swept up to the stage. It was Yao Yang, Du Feng, and 3 people who formed horns with each other. Chumo surrounded him to protect the law. As soon as everyone looked up, they realized that at some point, Lu Lorong, the inner disciple of the 7th team, had also stood there. Over the arena. In the central arena, the real person Zan Mu said with emotion, "The disciple has such a spirit, why is the sect unhappy tilde?" The real Xuansu next to him said, "That girl is also insisting, not bad." Zan Ce said, "There are dozens of battles in 2 days, but it's not just these 2 that are good." The 3 of them looked at each other and laughed. In Chumo's room, where the second-level disciples of Wuji Biyuan lived, a pair of eyes suddenly appeared in the dark room. Open in. Chumo stretched out his finger, a flame flashed, and he bounced on a lamp, and the dark room became bright. Stand up. The house is not big, only about 10 feet long and wide. The furnishings in the house are extremely simple, and there are only a few necessities of life. It can be seen that Chumo used to focus on hard work. Half a month has passed since the big competition, and Chumo's 8th layer cultivation of the bone-burning stage has also been completely consolidated. Recalling what happened in the big competition, Chumo still has lingering fears. On that day, he luckily broke through to resist Zhang Qian's attack at the last moment, although he finally defeated Zhang Qian, but the spiritual power he had just accumulated was also exhausted. Without the guidance of spiritual power, the cultivation base that originally broke through is like a building built without cement, immediately facing collapse. Once the cultivation base collapses, it will fall back to the 7th floor at light level, or be seriously injured and will not heal for several years. That's why Chumo fell to the ground without even looking at the result after sending out the last sword blow. And desperately run the tactic. Fortunately, it was not too late. Senior brother Lu, who led the team, took out a precious and top-quality recovery pill. Avoid the repair base collapse. It's just that Chumo can no longer participate in the competition in the central ring, and can only abstain. In the next half-month, Chumo began to retreat at his residence, recovered from his injuries, and continued to stabilize his cultivation. Chumo was deeply afraid that this breakthrough would leave some dark wounds, which would affect the improvement of his cultivation in the future. After combing through his body several times, he made sure that Wang Ma Zhao, was not affected. After half a month, Chumo left the customs, and his cultivation base was not only stabilized, but also the foundation was consolidated again. Although Chumo stopped at the top 16 this time, although he felt a little regretful, but after thinking about it, he originally came from. He couldn't even pass Zhang Qian's level. Now that I can get the reward of the top 16, it is already a big profit. Thinking of the reward, Chumo felt excited and took off a small and delicate blue cloth bag from his waist. Chapter 287 Chapter 287 Fei Dun Magic Tool, 6th update, please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. This is the storage bag. Chumo has seen it on Li Sheng and Zhang Qian respectively in the competition. There is a space in the small cloth bag, which can put a lot of things, and it is easy to access. Chumo's eyes were hot when he saw it. He thought that after the competition, he would buy one in the market. No. Thinking of the rewards of this competition, they were all sent with a small storage bag attached. This time, I saved another spirit stone. He injected spiritual power into the storage bag, and the storage bag could be used as long as the spiritual power was injected into it. Of course, if you reach the foundation building stage, you can also use your divine sense to draw an array on the storage bag, only the storage. The owner of the bag can use 723. Now Chumo can only use the storage bag in the simplest way. Crash. The rewards of this competition were all poured down in front of Chumo. The disciples who participated in the later stage of the bone-burning competition had 20 spiritual stones, and the top 64 were rewarded with 40 spiritual stones. The top 32 will be rewarded with 20 pills. After Chumo entered the 8th floor of the bone-burning stage, the blood-purifying pills he used before. The effect is not very obvious, just replaced it with more abundant spiritual power, which is more suitable for the 8th layer monk to use. Of blood essence. As for the reward for entering the top 16, Chumo specially asked for a magic weapon for Fei Dun. He already has. I got a bronze mirror for defense, but I just lacked a magic weapon for flying away. Being able to fly is the most basic means of life-saving. However, Chumo always felt that Zongmin suddenly expanded the scope of rewards and the intensity of rewards this time, but he has not been willing to pay attention to it. When a disciple explains the reason, there is always a purpose. He kept such an eye. Chumo didn't believe in what the disciples of the other courtyards practiced hard. The results were gratifying, and the sect deliberately expanded the rewards. What? Speech. Although there have been rumors that in recent decades, Wuji disciples have progressed faster in practice than other sect disciples. The strength gradually became stronger. But even if this is the truth, it is only better than that, and it is far from enough for the sect to increase the rewards to such a degree. This point. However, these things are far from the point where Chumo can touch it at this BJEB level. Chu now. Mo can only use every opportunity to increase his strength. As for accepting these rewards, Chumo can't care about what he will pay. This time, the 7th party team made a big progress, which made the team leader Lu Shishang win a lot. After Chumo stopped in the top 16, Yao Yang and Dufeng entered the top 8 and were rewarded by the Foundation Establishment Pill. Dufeng encountered an opponent who was already at the pinnacle of the 9th layer of bone burning, and was using a low-level defensive method. After obtaining the weapon and a mid-grade magic weapon, Dufeng was still defeated and stopped in the top 8. Yao Yang was the Guangyu who eliminated the first team of the 5 shows, and entered the semifinals. But unfortunately, he couldn't go any further. At this point, all the disciples of the 7th team have lost in this competition, although Lu Lorong has nothing to do with Yao Yang. Entering the finals, it is a pity that Chumo could not enter the quarterfinals. However, the 7th team still ranked 3rd among the 20 teams, and received a bet of 80 middle-grade spirit stones. After deducting the cost of 20 yuan, he made a net profit of 60 middle-grade spirit stones, which is equivalent to 6,000 low-grade spirit stones. This is also a lot of wealth for the inner disciples of the Foundation establishment period. Lu Lorong, who is in a good mood, has been promoted to the 3rd level for the 7th team after Chumo's retreat. The disciples' cultivator talked about his cultivation experience for a few days, so that the disciples of the 7th party have learned a lot. Thank you for visiting the 5G Xiao. Chapter 288 Chapter 288 King of Biyuan, 1 update, please subscribe. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the top 16 task and getting the sign-in gift package. Do you want to open the gift package immediately? Turn it on now. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining Putuo Dan, which can enhance your understanding and achieve twice the result with half the effort. Tilda Chumo is very happy for this reward. Since it is a cultivator, what is the most important thing? Talent. Comprehension. Talent can make people practice very fast, and there is not much bottleneck. But understanding is different. In the later stages of cultivation, it is often the level of understanding that is relied upon. In addition, there are many magic powers in the back, and it requires a strong understanding to comprehend. Use it now. Ding! Congratulations to the host's comprehension reaching the top genius level. I hope to continue to work hard. Chumo felt a chill in his mind, as if it was difficult for him to understand this savvy thing. On this day, after Chumo finished his training, he was stopped by senior brother Lu, who was the leader of the team. He had reached the 8th level of the bone-burning stage, and as a rule, he had to be taught by the team leader for 3 days alone. Before, because he needed to recover from his injuries and consolidate his cultivation, he never received individual guidance. Now that he is doing well, even if senior brother Lu doesn't call him, he can't wait. The 7th team will be promoted to the 3rd level disciple team in the second half of the year, so Lu Lorong is still the leader. Moreover, the 7th party team performed better this time, and some disciples may be supplemented to those with fewer advanced disciples. Square team. But it is only a small part, and it is impossible to be a disciple in the later stage of bone burning, unless Lu Lorong has a problem in his mind. Question. Now Chumo is still the 10th brother among the 3rd level disciples, but he has been tacitly regarded as the 2nd ranked by the 7th party disciples. The 3rd master of Yu Yaoyang and Dufeng. Even if he is not Chumo's opponent now, he didn't say anything about it. After all, in the big competition, Chumo was Zhang Qian, whose cultivation level was 2 levels higher than his own. This incident caused a sensation in the entire Promise Courtyard, and was especially appreciated by Master Zan Mu. Even if someone disagrees, they will not come forward to challenge Zhang Liang at this time. Now there is a saying among the disciples of Wuji Biyuan, 4 heroes, 5 shows, and 7 heroes, which is aimed at the busy. In the top 16. Chumo was one of the 7 heroes, which surprised him for a while. It is said that the evaluation of the 4 heroes, 5 shows and 7 heroes, is very particular. The 4 heroes are naturally the top 4 in this competition, and Yao Yang is one of the 4 heroes. The 5 shows are the 5 youngest among the top 16, and 4 of them are women. Dabi was the only 4 women who entered the round of 16. In this regard, was very upset, and personally found the only man in the 5 shows, one who just reached the bone-burning stage. The monk on the 9th floor defeated him in public and won him the title of 5 show. Then, 5 shows became 5 beauty. The rest as Heing, and some good people also ranked Chumo first in Heing. Ellipsis. For flowers. Chumo is naturally dismissive of this, but there is nothing he can do about his reputation. Chumo still respects this inner disciple, senior brother Lu, especially after entering the late stage of bone burning. Brother Lu's 3-day explanation is rich in content. Yes, Chumo has a greater understanding of this world of immortality. Very rewarding, even a little shocking. On the first day, senior brother Lu taught the cultivation experience, various problems that will be encountered from the 8th to 9th layers of the bone-burning period, and various situations to be aware of. Senior brother Lu, I explained it, including various preparations for the foundation period. If it is said that the gap between the monks in the bone-burning stage is not too obvious, the foundation building stage is a watershed. The difference lies in the exercises that each cultivator cultivates, the cultivation resources he possesses, and the wisdom to face difficulties. Determination and courage. Even include luck. This is a road of rapid progress, and a little laxity and hesitation will bring about the consequences of the road of cultivation. Narrow, or even cut off. After the explanation on the first day, Chumo always had a question echoing in his heart. What exactly is cultivation? The Dragon Ball world is about chi, and this world is about spiritual power. In fact, they are almost the same. But in the Dragon Ball world, His strength has improved rapidly, and there is no bottleneck. But cultivating immortals is different, pays attention to Taoism and naturalness, and comprehends all things in the world. Corpse. 0. Chapter 289 I-8 for longevity. Chapter 289 I am for longevity, second update, please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. Chumo thought about it for a whole night, and thought about thousands of reasons for cultivation, and finally stopped. He hesitated, his eyes became clear again. When Brother Lu asked the next day, Chumo only had 2 words, longevity. Senior Brother Lu said, is this the only reason? Are there other reasons? Chumo shook his head and said, in the beginning, there were many complicated thoughts in my mind, no matter which one was the same. A viable reason, 7 and 80, can be thought of in the end, only this one is the most practical and the most immortal. All other reasons will fade away with time, only this reason will last forever. Brother Lu laughed, ha ha, for a while, what a good one that lasts forever and can be taught by children. After all, looking at Chumo's eyes was a little complicated for a while. There is joy, there is jealousy, there is memory, and there is bitterness. But Chumo didn't know that this was a state of mind test of the Wuji Academy for the 8th level disciples who had reached the bone-burning stage. Test. The purpose, origin, and reason of each monk's practice are different. Even each monk has a lot of thoughts. Now the cultivator may not be aware of it, and even feel that it is making a big fuss, but with the improvement of cultivation. With the growth of the state of mind, every thought will turn into an obsession, and every obsession is for future practice. Fetters. Thousands of years later, the reason for the practice of the past may be shattered with the passage of time, and it may be unrealistic. These thoughts are too entangled. It will even turn into a demon, threatening the life of the monk. Only by establishing an unchanging and stable cultivation idea can a monk go further. A guarantee. Chumo didn't know this, maybe after many years, with the improvement of his cultivation, he will wake up to today's Lu. Brother, the significance of this question. The content of the second day is about the experience of the bone-burning stage monks in the foundation-building stage, and the precautions. There was even the cultivation method of the bone-burning stage, which made Chumo a little stunned. Lu Lorong looked at Chumo's expression and said with a smile, why, do you feel that cultivation is difficult now? Chumo nodded and said, although I was determined to go on no matter how difficult it was, I didn't expect to cultivate like this. Process. Lu Lorong said, do you know how many chances are there for a cultivator in the bone-burning stage to enter the foundation establishment stage? Chumo said, 1%. Lu Lorong asked again, does Jindan cultivator know? Chumo shook his head. Lu Lorong continued, there is not even 1 in 1,000, and the Jindan stage is also in crisis. Every step is related to the ultimate achievement of the practice, and even I know very little about it. Our promise sect plus the disciples of other courtyards, there are hundreds of thousands of outer sect disciples. But the disciples of the foundation building period are not enough. Thousands, this is because the lifespan of the monks in the foundation establishment period is more than double that of the bone burning period. Jindan period real people have a lifespan of 500 to 1,000 years, accumulating up to now, it is said that they don't care about dozens. As for, even I have never seen the legendary ancestor of the legendary god turning stage. Just know this faction 5.9 can. There must be such power. Hearing this, Chumo couldn't help feeling emotional. Dragon Ball world belongs to the two-dimensional space, and people there live for hundreds of millions of years. And the attack power is very powerful, destroying the planet is a trivial matter. But according to the system, in the three-dimensional world, even if he still has all the energy, he may not be able to destroy it. A hill here. He has to work hard to cultivate. Wong, remember me. Chapter 290 _ Chapter 290 Big waves wash the sand, 3 shifts, please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. Seeing Chumo's expression, Lularong knew that he was already absent-minded, and said, "I am here today. I'm tired too, you just need to keep in mind everything that has been said today." Seeing this, Chumo immediately retire. On the third day, the content explained is the world of people in the cultivation world, as well as the matters needing attention in the cultivation world. The situation of the world, etc. Some even Brother Lu knew very little. On the contrary, the more Chumo listened, the more questions he had. In the end, Lularong refused. Not embarrassed to stop Chumo's question, he said, "The world of practice is vast, and even I can't fully understand it. You can only give the basic things to you, and you will understand and experience it yourself in the future." After the explanation, he took out 2 jade slips and said, "These 2 jade slips, one records what the cultivation world can do. All kinds of heaven and earth treasures used. It is all summed up by the seniors of the sect who have traveled the world over the years. Although it is not complete, it is. It is enough for the monks who are waiting for the bone-burning stage. The other piece is the customs of the cultivation world recorded by the predecessors of the past dynasties, and it is essential to go out and travel." Chumo took the 2 jade slips and said in deep thought, "Senior brother, does the sect need me to wait for the disciples to go out to perform duties? Otherwise, how could you make such thorough preparations?" Lularong was stunned for a moment, then he laughed and said, "You are smart, but you are not entirely right. Zongmen have always been rules. When the disciples reached the 8th level of the bone-burning stage, they all had to travel outside. Although there are no other hard rules for this, I also try to be fully prepared for the sect disciples to go out. It is so. There is nothing special about you waiting this time. After all, you are waiting for the future expectations of the sect, maybe one of them. It is the master of the future spiritual transformation period, the pillar of the sect. Although there are other things this time, the specific situation is not very clear. You can wait for the news of the sect." Lularong's remarks confirmed what Chumo was thinking, but Chumo's doubts were even deeper. After leaving Lularong's yard, Chumo couldn't help laughing when he recalled what he had just said. This kind of thing is that even the inner disciples like Lu senior brother don't know much, and it is obviously planned by the real person. Even, it is a more powerful means. What can a little bone-burning cultivator be able to do? Let these characters count. Even if it is a bit of a care, with one's own cultivation base that is obediently obedient, how can he jump out of him? Their chess game. All he can do is to work hard to improve his cultivation until he can decide his own destiny. Third-level disciples seldom cultivate in other courtyards, and most of them have to travel outside to gain knowledge and find opportunity, complete the sect mission and so on. Even if the disciple's cultivation base has not reached the 8th floor of the bone-burning stage, after 1 year of cultivation, he must receive the sect. 480 plans for your future cultivation path. This is also the reason why, apart from the year-end competition, there are few third-level disciples in the Wuji courtyard. The Promise sect has a long heritage and knows the truth that it is difficult to raise pillars in a greenhouse. So give the disciples freedom and space, and let them fight on their own. After all, the inheritance of Zongmen depends on the elites. After being warned by Brother Lu, Chumo has been traveling for the past 6 months in addition to practicing hard. Prepare. After the cultivation reached the 8th level of the bone-burning stage, Chumo began to refine the talisman. Many guys have talismans. What he took out was just rubbish prepared before. Chapter 291 Making Talismans. However, his comprehension has soared now, and now he can learn a school talisman. Sure enough, he, who was unable to succeed before, succeeded not long after. The feeling of making the talisman is endless. With the success of his talisman, low-grade talismans rarely appear, and most of them are middle and upper-grade talismans. It is a top-quality talisman, and it is also made every 3 to 5. Now Chumo has replaced all his reserves with a superb talisman. However, He didn't want to reveal the secret of his ability to make talismans, because the power of the best talismans is almost as strong as that of building talismans. The ordinary spells in the early stage of the foundation are almost the same. If the sect knew that he could make the best talisman now, it would be difficult. It is guaranteed that no one will lead his cultivation path to a special refining talisman. But he didn't want to. It's a pity that Dobby didn't make it to the top 8. The reward for the top 8 is a foundation establishment pill. How much is this? Expected. Chumo has always been brooding about the foundation pill. The increase in the level of refining talismans originally meant that the number of spiritual stones in Chumo would increase greatly in the future, but due to the medicinal pill was replaced with the blood essence pill with better effect, and the price was naturally more expensive. Although there are big rewards, plus the benefits of the 8th floor disciples during the bone-burning period, the spirit stones in Chumo's storage bag, the number has only increased slightly. The growth of the cultivation base is quite gratifying. In half a year, Chumo's cultivation base can be said to have grown steadily. However, it is impossible to enter the 9th floor in a short time like the 7th floor. After all, his accumulation in the 6th layer of the bone-burning stage was extremely strong. At the end of the month, at the Square Market Fair, Chumo wore a mask and set up a street stall in the Square Market to sell talismans. Now Chumo's talisman is also well known in the market, and in the past 6 months, Chumo has begun to reserve extremely the quality talismans are for their own use, and the number of high-quality talismans on the stall has greatly increased. This also attracted many cultivators to buy it, and it was often sold out just after he put it on. Sure enough, as soon as Chumo put it up this time, he was surrounded by cultivators in 2s and 3s to buy it. At this time, a big man in his 30s who came from the east of Fengshi came directly to Chumo and walked to the street stall. He squatted down, took a few high-grade talismans and looked at them, saying, "Brother, you have a very high level of talisman making for a long time." After all, he just looked at Chumo, and didn't say whether he would buy it or not. Chumo frowned and looked at the other party, but did not deny that the talisman was made by himself. "Who care?" I calmly said. "Dare to ask friends, but want to buy a talisman." Big man. He smiled and said, "Brother, let's discuss, I want to buy all your talismans. What do you think?" Chumo was stunned for a moment and said, "Of course, these talismans are worth a total of spirit stones." Seeing that Chumo didn't understand what he meant, the big man hurriedly said, I didn't make it clear. It means that I want to invite my brother to be a full-time talisman master of Tonglimeng. My brother's future talisman is all-inclusive of Tonglimeng. There will be no missing brother Lingxi, Dujiao. What do you think?" Chumo did not expect that these things would make him meet. The Promise sect has a long heritage and great strength. The surrounding square market has become a gathering place for various loose cultivators. These loose cultivators are mixed, good and bad, and they form gangs. Chumo has not seen this before. This is the first time that I have encountered it. It's just that this full-time talisman master, if he encounters a group with more correct behavior, is also quite respected, and his income. Money. Chu Wang. Remember me. Chapter 292. Not interested. If you encounter some gangs with evil intentions, once you enter, you will be controlled by them, or you will become a. The slave monks who made the amulet were killed and looted, and the secret of making the amulet was robbed. As a disciple of Wuji Biyuan, Chumo naturally didn't have the idea of doing loose cultivation, and immediately refused. Not interested. Face changed, and he said, "Why, do fellow Taoists look down on me in the Tongwei League? I have 10 loose cultivators in the Tongwei League. 8 people, all of them are above the 8th floor of the bone-burning stage, and the alliance leader is a master of the foundation building stage." The words were already threatening. However, who is Chumo, who will care about this? Moment, he said coldly, "I am a disciple of the Promise sect, and I am not interested in joining you." Heard that Chumo was a disciple of the Promise sect. 370 feet's face froze immediately, and he said embarrassingly, the original. I'm a disciple of the big sect, and naturally I don't like the small alliance of loose cultivators, so I said goodbye. After all, turn around and leave. Chumo didn't take it seriously, and continued to use the remaining talismans. Sold out, and then exchange the spiritual stone you have for training. Of medicinal herbs and some training supplies. I went to the market and bought some sundries. Recently, the disciples in the later stage of bone burning in the other courtyard were going to hold a small exchange meeting. Chumo's fame has increased greatly now. Also included in the invitation. Chumo is also very interested in this trade fair. He agreed, so I have been accumulating BHFD stone, in case you come across something you like, but can't afford to buy. Although Chumo didn't hold out much hope for encountering what he was excited about. However, Chumo still inquired about the situation of the Tongwei Alliance from the surrounding monks. After all, the Tongwei Alliance, just now. The big man came directly at him, obviously he knew something about him in advance. However, the people here don't know much about this Tongwei League. It is said that this group of cultivators is in the low-level scattered cultivation, with a high level of cultivation and a fighting spirit. In exchange for hunting and killing monsters, exploring and seeking strangeness in exchange for cultivation resources, he made friends with the outer disciples of the Promise sect as soon as he arrived. Su quickly gained a firm foothold among the scattered cultivators near the Promise sect. Chumo didn't care too much, it was enough to understand it. Insufficient strength, rubbish is just rubbish. After walking around in Fangxi, Chumo left Fangxi without finding anything useful. However, he didn't use the flying escape magic tool either. That thing was a waste of spiritual power. It wasn't the end, he didn't plan on it yet. And he is not ready to show off as a nouveau riche, so naturally he can only use lightweight techniques to show off to others. Run in the direction of the courtyard. However, on the way back to the courtyard, we had to pass through a forest. After Chumo entered, he took out a talisman from the storage bag and slapped it on himself, and his figure was in a trance. Disappeared without a trace. Invisibility charm, the simplest invisibility charm that can be refined during the bone burning stage, it can only cover up the figure. If the foundation building cultivator was here, he would be able to find his location in the blink of an eye. Even an experienced bone-burning cultivator can find Chumo's traces through clues. Chumo disappeared for a while, and saw the figures of two monks walking through the rocks and trees. The shape is hidden and strict, but the speed is extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he came to the woods where Chumo was. The two stopped, and one of them was the big Han cultivator whom he had just seen in Fangxi. The other was thin, like a bamboo pole. Tall and thin cultivator looked to the left and right and said, when the person walks here, the traces disappear, it seems that he has. Seeing us, wiping away the traces we left behind as we walked. Chapter 293 1 Kill 2. The big Han cultivator said fiercely, you're young, but you're smart. I've inquired, this kid is in the workshop. The Fu policy drawn in the city is quite famous. I plan to capture this kid to draw the Fu policy for us. By the way, I asked under the situation of Promise sect, unexpectedly let him slip away. The tall and thin cultivator frowned and said displeased don't talk nonsense, I'm just hired to beat you. That's all, this time. If there is no urgent need for someone who is proficient in making talismans, how can you start with the disciples of Wuji sect, Wuji? Zong is not what we, Tongwimeng, can afford. The big Han cultivator smiled shyly and stopped talking. The tall and thin cultivator carefully looked at the traces around him and said uncertainly, maybe this person did not leave, only. It's just hiding in the woods with an invisibility talisman. The big Han cultivator said disapprovingly, even if he is next to him, that kid is just a bone-burning period. It's just a little monk on the 8th floor. After only a few years of cultivation, I dare to give you and me an 8th level cultivation base and a 9th level cultivation base. Cultivation of 2 cultivators who often fight on the edge of life and death. As soon as the Dayan cultivator finished speaking, he felt a wave of spiritual energy behind him, and turned his head to look in horror. I saw a sword energy suddenly appear, turning into a size of several feet, and with the momentum of lightning, it was directed at the big man. The monk is coming. Tall and thin cultivator secretly shouted, "Not good," and quickly shot out a high-grade talisman to attack Chumo, who showed his figure. He picked up a magic formula in his hand, and said something in his mouth. At the same time, a flying sword instrument flew out from the storage bag, and a steady stream of mana was injected into the flying sword. Pointing at Chumo, there is a tendency to kill Chumo with one blow, which is exactly the way to surround Wei and save Zhao. A red light flashed on Chumo's body, and a top-quality talisman turned into a Vajra shield, protecting Chumo in front of him, and at the same time spiritual power. The shield walked around the body, and another top-quality talisman turned into 3 sharp swords and flew towards the Dayan cultivator. Chumo is determined to kill one person first. Dayan monk is indeed a person who has been on the edge of life and death all the year round. He picked up a bottle-shaped magic weapon, and a huge wave spewed out of it, rushing towards the sword energy. It's just that the sword chi still broke through the huge waves under the unintentional calculation. Ask for flowers. There was a loud noise of dang, and the bottle-shaped instrument was knocked and flew away. Affected by this, the big Han cultivator vomited a mouthful of blood. Came out and was seriously injured. 3 sharp swords flew through the air, and the big Han cultivator didn't care about the mana disorder in his body, so he took out a high-grade talisman. He slapped on himself and turned into a wooden wall in front of him. At the same time, he took out a stick-shaped magic soldier, which had not yet been used, only the wooden wall in front of him had been pierced by a sharp sword. The 3 swords were inexhaustible and stabbed directly at the big Han cultivator. Face suddenly turned white, and he exclaimed, "Superior talisman." The long stick smashed 2 sharp swords, and the third stabbed him in the heart under the horrified eyes of the big Han monk. Wear a pair. The tall and thin cultivator felt bad when Chumo still attacked the big Han cultivator despite his own offensive. But the arrow was on the string, and he couldn't allow him to think too much. The explosive inflammation technique in his hand turned into a fireball and flew towards Chumo. When the big man's cry for help came, and the slender monk's heart sank, but the flying sword in his hand was still closely followed by him. After that, attacked Chumo. Factory. Chapter 294. Want to leave, it's too late. Vajra shield, transformed by the top-grade talisman on Chumo's body, was hit by the top-grade talisman of the tall and thin cultivator. Another explosive flame, in the art realm, it dissipated. The spiritual shield blocked all other attacks. Immediately afterwards, I saw a bronze mirror turned into several feet in size. With a loud noise, it stubbornly resisted the flying object. Swordsmanship. In just an instant, the big Han cultivator died. 30 inches only Chumo and the tall and thin cultivator are left, and the hunter and the prey have changed their identities. The tall and thin cultivator stared fiercely at Chumo, wishing to swallow his flesh, and said, "You, so young, so good. Tight calculations, such a cruel heart." Chumo smiled indifferently, and said, "If it wasn't for that, wouldn't it be the one lying down on the ground?" Okay. The tall and thin cultivator is awe-inspiring. After all, this is the location of the Promise sect. The opponent is not weak, and the killing intent is now. Gradually retreat, the meaning of retreat will be born. So he said, "Your Excellency's means have been taught, and the Tonglei Alliance will have a report." Having said that, he pulled away and wanted to leave. "If you want to go, how can it be so easy?" Chumo snorted coldly, and the magic soldier in his hand attacked the thin and tall cultivator. The tall and thin cultivator did not show weakness, he resisted Chumo's attack with a magic soldier in his hand, and scolded at the same time, "Boy, don't. Saying that you only have the 8th level cultivation base. Even if you have 2 magic weapons, you can't stop me if I want to leave." Chumo didn't answer. He directly waved a sword energy and slashed at the tall and thin cultivator. The tall and thin monk scolded secretly, and the flying sword magic weapon also flew into the air, resisting the sword energy. The two fought for a while, and the tall and thin cultivator had already decided to retreat. This kid from the Promise sect is really an evil sect, with strong mana, and only the cultivation of the 8th floor can be compared with his own 9. The cultivation of the layer is opposite to consumption. Moreover, the position where the two were fighting was near the Promise sect, and it was not certain which monk of the Promise sect passed by. It's about to end. The more slender and tall cultivator thought about it, the more he wanted to retreat, and he wanted to retreat several times. However, Chumo is stalking and stalking. He seems to have the idea of a thin and tall cultivator, and is also waiting for the Wuji cultivator road. Pass. It seems that it is impossible to retreat completely, and the tall and thin cultivator is determined. After I made up my mind, dozens of talismans flew out of the storage bag, including upper, middle and lower grades. Smashed to Chumo. He beat Chumo into a frenzy. He added 2 superlative talismans to himself, and then hitted one after another. Shen, this barely blocked the attack of the tall and thin cultivator. Chumo looked up and saw that the tall and thin cultivator had quickly retreated in the direction he had come from. Chumo flicked a top-quality talisman into a fine needle of cow hair and flew towards the back of the tall and thin cultivator. The tall and thin cultivator threw out a spell to resist with his backhand, but people didn't stop. Even if they were injured, they had to leave this place. Inside, a few thin needles that were not blocked by the spell were pinned to the back of the tall and thin monk. The tall and thin monk groaned and his feet. The next one stumbled, then dashed faster than ever. Chumo 1.3 looked at the tall and thin cultivator who was running farther and farther, and snorted, "Did you run?" A small boat suddenly appeared under his feet, which was the flying escape artifact that Chumo obtained in the competition. The mana was surging, and the boat flashed with white light, and it was already half the distance from the tall and thin cultivator. The tall and thin cultivator was secretly cursing Chumo when he suddenly felt a wind in the back of his head, and when he looked back, a sword chi covered him. I took the sky above my head and chopped it down to myself. Thanks for visiting the 5G Shao. Chapter 295 Killing the Enemy and Harvesting. Chumo looked at the tall and thin cultivator who had been cut into 2 pieces by himself, and then took the tall and thin cultivator's storage bag in his hand. An earth magic will be smashed down half a foot of earth and buried together with the lanky monk. He took the big Han cultivator's storage bag in his hand, and then a fireball burned the body. Chumo took out a jade bottle from the storage bag, poured out a recovery pill and swallowed it, almost consuming it. The exhausted mana quickly recovered. Chumo looked up and looked around. The woods were silent in the evening, and then he ran to the other courtyard without looking back. Go. After Chumo disappeared into the woods, 2 people appeared in the sky, and the 2 stood in the air. Symbol of. The 2 looked at the messy forest. 17 smiled at each other, turned and flew towards the mountain gate of the Promise sect. When Chumo returned to the residence in the other courtyard, he couldn't wait to open the storage bags of the 2 of them. Looking at the pile of items in front of him, Chumo's mood was instantly refreshed, and the fatigue from the previous fight was swept away. It seems that the loose cultivators are not necessarily those who are shy in their pockets. Judging from the behavior of the 2 of them, this Tongwei alliance has not done much for fear of killing people and stealing goods. The first is the Spirit Stone. The 2 have more than 300 Spirit Stones in total, and 2 of them are middle-grade spirits. This surprised Chumo, who was the first to own a mid-grade Spirit Stone. With the growth of Chumo's cultivation, his net worth is also gradually expanding, but at the same time, the consumption of various cultivation is also. It's a rising tide. Chumo worked hard to cultivate the talisman technique, but it was only a small amount of savings. These more than 300 spirit stones were undoubtedly a windfall. The second is medicinal pills. There are 2 bottles of blood essence pills in Dayan Cultivator, a total of 28 pills, which happens to be Chumo. More than a month's amount. Saved another spirit stone. A tall and thin cultivator is a 9-layered bone-burning stage, and the most suitable medicinal pill is the bone-burning stage, which is also a total of 4 in 2 bottles. 10. Bone-burning pill is a better bone-burning pill than pure blood pill. Chumo can actually use it too, but with his bone-burning pill. For the cultivation of the 8th level, the huge medicinal power of the bone-burning pill is difficult to absorb completely, and it will waste part of it. The frugal Chumo will definitely not accept it. There are several other medicinal herbs to treat injuries and restore mana. It seems that the healing and magic pills that need to be prepared for this outing experience are available. In order to save a considerable amount of spiritual stone, Chumo's small abacus was crackling. Again, it's a magic weapon. One is the jade bottle instrument of the Big Han monk, and the other is the flying sword instrument of the slender monk. Chumo said nothing, just picked it up and started refining, although his current mana couldn't make the 4 magical tools. Used together. 743. But when it comes to fighting skills, it is ever-changing, so how do you know when to use that magic weapon? This battle in the woods is a testament to that. When fighting against the tall and thin cultivator, although he is powerful, he can attack too. In the next time, the thin and tall monk's flying sword has been sacrificed 3 times. If it weren't for this, he would have completely suppressed the tall and thin cultivator, and he would have used his own flying escape tool there. The ones that take up the most space are some spiritual grasses for alchemy, or raw materials for alchemy, and the valuable items of hunting monsters are also a spiritual stone. Perhaps selling to this faction in exchange for some contribution value is also a good choice. Wong, remember me. Chapter 296, Foundation Building Materials. A sect also needs to be managed, especially a sect that has been passed down for thousands of years or even tens of thousands of years. Her various systems are even more perfect, and contribution value is a common method. Disciples can obtain some things that are not available outside or whose value is much higher than their own price through contribution value. This can not only benefit the monks, but also strengthen the sect. Chumo even saw 2 kinds of 500-year-old blood essence grass and hyro that are needed to refine the foundation pill. Rattan. It is said that 24 kinds of spirit grasses of 500 points are needed to refine the foundation pill, as long as a disciple collects all 8 kinds of them. In exchange for a foundation establishment dan. It is conceivable that when Chumo saw these 2 kinds of spirit grasses, this was a quarter of a foundation building pill. Of course, Chumo can also be exchanged for contribution points, but not everything can be used for contributions. In exchange for value, the establishment pill is one of them. These elixir related to the rise and fall of sects can only be exchanged for raw materials, which is different from the square market. There are also a few jade slips, all of which record spells, knowledge, etc. Chumo roughly glanced at them. Chumo used it to rub it on the Wujizong jade slip given to him by senior brother Lu. Usefulness. However, a jade slip inside caught Chumo's attention, and it recorded a lot of information about Wuji according to time. In the case of Zong, most of the people involved were disciples in the bone-burning stage. The few senior brothers in the foundation establishment period have heard more than they have seen. It even recorded the situation of the great comparison of Wuji Biyuan, and even the fact that he was called Chi-Ying. There are records of love, and many things are not known by Chumo himself. Chumo remembered that in the woods, the Big Han cultivator said that someone hired Tongwimeng to inquire about the situation of the Promise sect. The next surprise, is it possible that someone is going to be detrimental to this faction? Afterwards, this idea was overturned. How could it be possible that only the information of these bone-burning stage disciples could have? What is it for? The foundation of a sect is still in those Jindan real people, the ancestors of the gods, even if they are teachers in the foundation building period. Brother, it's just some branches and leaves of the sect. However, Chumo thought about it. If someone really calculated the faction, even if the unlucky ones were just some bone-burning younger brothers. Son, but you are not a disciple of the bone-burning stage. This matter still has to be reported to the sect, just don't confiscate what you got from killing yourself. In Chumo's memory, he lived in the Wuji courtyard when he was 6 years old. It has been 10 years since then. The sense of belonging is naturally strong, even if he originally had a different soul from others, he is still a person who knows how to know. The people of the Entu newspaper. Chumo finished sorting out the harvest this time, and after finishing the practice the next day, Chumo explained what happened yesterday. Originally, I told senior brother Lu, and at the same time handed the jade slip that recorded the situation of the Wuji sect to senior brother Lu. Senior brother Lu Zhao Zhao was noncommittal after hearing what Chumo said, and took over Chumo's jade slip without even looking at it. Said directly. Fly Camp Dog Go's generation has done a lot of work. For some trivial matters, don't worry about them, concentrate on cultivating them. Practice, prepare for the experience. Chumo nodded and was about to quit when he was taught. At this time, something flew out from Chumo's belt, which was Chumo's identity inscription. Brother Lu took the card in his hand and threw it to Chumo, saying, "I'll give you a credit and leave it." Chapter 297 Experience. After Chumo came out, he took a look at the nameplate, and there were 10 more contribution points on it. A joy in my heart, 20 contribution points can be exchanged for a low-level magic weapon. This is a half magic weapon. It's just that I already have 4 low-level magic weapons. If I want to change them, I have to change to middle-grade magic tools. I'm ready to forge. It is used at the 9th level of the bone stage, but it requires 50 contribution points. From senior brother Lu's tone, Chumo felt that the sect already knew about it. But I'm not sure, the mental calculations of these big men are not something I can figure out now. It's a pity that I was worried that the benefits from this killing would be confiscated, and I didn't think about any of these senior brothers. He is aloof, how can he see these things of his own, but he is petty. After Chumo came out of senior brother Lu, he went to the alchemy room and exchanged the dozens of spirit grasses he had obtained for tribute. Contribute value, and then go to Chi-Lien Pavilion to hand in the ore and monster raw materials, so that your contribution value suddenly reaches 410. It's almost 10 o'clock before you can change to the middle-level magic weapon. I think of the 3rd-level disciple I met in Fangxi, and it took a year to achieve the contribution value of 50. Time, in the end, I have to sell the spiritual stone of the magic weapon in exchange for it, and I only have 1 day to get there. Arrive. It seems to be the answer to the saying, a horse without night grass is not fat, and a person without windfall wealth is not rich. In the blink of an eye, another half a year has passed, and the time for experience has finally come. In the past 6 months, due to the more abundant supply of spirit stones, Chumo finally consolidated his cultivation base in the calcined bone. The middle of the 8th floor. Cultivation is like this. The more you go, the more difficult it becomes. After you break through the 8th layer of the bone-burning stage, you don't dare to have any threads. Without slack, the medicinal herbs and spirit stones are used for full-load cultivation. In a year, it has only been from entering the 8th floor of cultivation to the middle stage of the 8th floor. In the past, the disciples were trained by themselves after selecting tasks from the sect, either alone or in groups. Travel. Most of them hunt sea beasts in the sea, or hunt monsters in the island, or collect spirit grass and ore. Wait, there are so many different types. This time is different, led by inner disciples, except for the brothers above the 8th floor, Bid J, of the bone-burning period of this team. In addition to the sun, he also gathered enough disciples from the outer door of the 8th floor of the bone-burning stage to make up 20 people to form an experience team. 20 experienced teams left in turn from the teleportation array in the other courtyard, and all the disciples did not know their own. What is the training mission? When Chumo came out of the teleportation array, he was already on an island, and the sound of the waves not far away was faint. Can be heard. 21 people from the 7th party, together with senior brother Lu, were guided by the disciples of the Wuji sect who had been waiting on the island for a long time. Rested overnight. The next day, everyone gathered under a rock on the island. Brother Lu and Brother Du, who had been waiting for them last night. It was only announced to them that this time the experience mission. Looking at the eager expressions of the disciples under the rock, senior brother Lu showed no expression on his face, cold and cold. Said, "This is the Zon level island on the border of this faction, Xuanhua Island, opposite the place 500 miles away. It is the destination of the 7th team's training." An outer sect disciple who was familiar with the ground immediately reacted and whispered below, "Xuanhua Island. That's not the origin. A Zon level island in the southernmost part of the sect's sphere of influence, and within 500 miles to the south, you will reach the sphere of influence of the Xuanling sect." Why? Chapter 298 Flying Magical Instrument. Speaking of this, the disciple's face couldn't help but change color. Could it be that this training mission is going to be done on the site of the Xuanling faction? Isn't the two factions going to go to war? The Xuanling faction is now the biggest force in our northern sea area, so this training may not be easy. Tilde. Exclamation mark quote. HMPH, what are you afraid of? The Xuanling faction has been in decline a lot over the years, and the faction is not necessarily afraid, he. N. Listening to the discussions of the people around him, Chumo was also a little puzzled. Could it be that the sect really wants to sway the Xuanling sect, Tiger? Must. Brother Lu looked at the expressions of the disciples, his face was still cold, and then said, "It has been found out that there is a called Tongwimeng. We're instructed by the Xuanling sect to spy on secrets in the sect, and repeatedly conspiracy to loot and kill disciples of this faction." Speaking of this, senior brother Lu's eyes swept over Chumo inadvertently, and then said, "Flee after the incident. The border sea area between Zixuanling sect and this faction is now hidden in Xuanling sect's Zon level island, Xuanqi Island. Strict. Those who offend Miwuji will be killed and eliminated. Jia Fan Duangguang is being watched by the low-colored scissor Chao Dao, who leads Xuanqi Island, kills the monks of the Tongwimeng, and maintains the respect of this faction. The task of this team's training is to occupy Xuanqi Island, capture and kill the Tongwimeng monks, and maintain the respect of this faction. The disciples have been cultivated and educated by the Promise sect since childhood, and they have a strong sense of belonging to the Promise sect. Even Chumo asked Master Lu. The blood boiled when the brother said a few words with a fierce expression. Seeing the high morale of the disciples, senior brother Lu looked very relieved, and pointed to senior brother Du next to him and said, This is the sect's resident senior brother on Xuanhua Island. This task is led by Du senior brother and myself, and all the disciples are united. Work together and swear to kill the remnants of the Tongwei League. On the boundless sea, a magic weapon like a big ship quickly swept across the sea and disappeared in a blink of an eye. No trace, only a white watermark was left on the sea. The large vessel of the magic weapon that senior brother Du took out really surprised the disciples in the other courtyard. Although this magic weapon is only of the middle grade, this kind of large-scale magic weapon that can carry many people is very rare. Ordinary is a top-quality magic weapon that may not be able to be exchanged. Senior brother Du looked at everyone's envious expressions and smiled helplessly, saying, This is what this sect is preparing for this experience. The magic weapon, this senior brother is not generous enough to have such a magic weapon. Ask for flowers. The big ship did not choose to fly in the air, it was too fast but too much mana, not to mention the immediate. There is a fight coming. Sailing at sea, although the speed is half slower, but only 500 miles of sea area, it is also in a blink of an eye. Unlike everyone's nervousness before the battle, although Chumo's face is calm, he has too many doubts in his heart. Consider. The Tongwei Alliance is just a loose cultivator gang, with a number of only 20, and the leader's cultivation level is only in the early stage of foundation building. The rest are in the bone-burning stage. Such a group of people, even if they were lucky enough to rob a few Wuji sect disciples, how could they succeed several times? Undetected by this faction. After finding out, how can they escape the pursuit of the Promise sect and come to Xuanqi Island? To know the location of the Promise Biyuan, it is not elsewhere, it is the sect of the Promise sect, and the masters are like clouds. How much energy does it take to escape under such a behemoth? How can the people of this sect be sure that the Tongwei League is hiding in Xuanqi Island, and they have to risk the cultivation world in the Northern Sea area? The danger of Niuer's Xuanling faction is an enemy. Mouth. Network. Remember me. Chapter 299 Chess Pieces. Chumo's heart moved, unless this is the intention of this faction, but what is the purpose of this faction? Does this faction really have the strength to challenge the Xuanling faction? Chumo felt that his head was too big. Thinking can only be based on the consciousness of being a chess piece. I'm afraid even these two senior brothers are just pawns. Seeing the calm faces of senior brother Lu and senior brother Du, 217 inches, Chumo decided to go all out to prepare for landing on the island. Let's fight. Looking at the expressions of the two senior brothers, this mission should not go wrong. Fortunately, Chumo had already had a hunch that this time the preparations were sufficient, so he touched his storage bag. I can't help but feel a little bit of pain. It seems that this time the belongings will be difficult to guarantee again. I hope I can gain something. Fighting is deadly, even for monks. As for Chumo's own safety, just kidding, how could he die? Chumo didn't even think about it. Chumo gradually calmed down and ran the bone-burning stage transformation spiritual art, trying to adjust his state to the best possible state. Okay. A towering shadow in the distance is getting fresher and fresher. The place of this experience is about to arrive. On Xuanqi Island. A fight is coming. Although the size of Xuanqi Island is comparable to that of Xuanhua Island, most of Xuanqi Island is a mountain peak that penetrates into the sky. So there are many cliffs. Looking at the island that was getting closer and closer, while everyone was marveling at the magnificent scenery of Xuanqi Island, senior brother Lu frowned. Wrinkling his head, he said, "They found us." Brother Du, who was amazed at the range of senior brother Lu's powerful consciousness, also noticed something later and said, "Zhao." The guy in Lingqiao was also clever and hid directly in the Guardian formation on the island. Except for mortals on the island. Those with cultivation bases are also concentrated there, and it seems that they are not completely unprepared. Senior brother Lu smiled, hee, and said, "I didn't plan to make a sneak attack, so that's fine." The two looked at each other and smiled, and flew to the island in unison, followed by the disciples. Some fly in the air with the help of magic weapons, some run on the ground with the help of divine runes, and some simply use lightweight. They ran to the island together. Chumo added a divine talisman to his body, and after running over a mountain pass, he saw a blue light in the distance. The curtain is like an upside-down big bowl, covering a piece of building in it, which is the island protection formation of Xuanqi Island. Chumo, who was running, suddenly felt the vibration of spiritual energy around him, and saw a giant axe rising to several feet in the air. The small, 3-foot-long axe blade flashed with cold light, and with a whistling, it slashed towards the light curtain. Seeing that the giant axe was about to slash on the light curtain, a small orange flag suddenly flew from the formation. The sky also rose to the size of 10 feet, and the flags were fluttering. A stream of yellow sand suddenly flew out from the yellow flag, and it scoured the giant axe continuously, cutting down on the giant axe. Falling speed, and trying to push the axe out of the range of the formation from the side. It's just that this giant axe came to take advantage of the situation, and its power was huge. Before the yellow flag pushed the giant axe away, the giant axe had already The blue light 0.6 scene swayed for a while. This was because the power of the giant axe was reduced a lot. Sans push did not hit the center of the formation. At this time, a flying sword was also sacrificed, flashed in the air, and appeared above the formation, and the light curtain suddenly appeared. Then an iron umbrella flew out. Only a loud, ding, sound was heard, and Chumo's ears were numb. Sparks fly on the umbrella. Phaegian returned without success. Thank you for visiting 5G Small. Chapter 300_. This time, Chumo could see clearly that it was senior brother Du who did it. Then the giant axe just now should be brother Lu's magic weapon. The people in the formation dealt with it properly, and it seems that there are also 2 monks in the Foundation establishment period. At this time, the disciples of Wuji sect had also arrived. No need to order, they all offered up their own magic weapons, magic soldiers, talismans, etc., and rushed towards the formation. Various weapons also fly out of the formation to intercept, but the area of the formation is huge, where can. With all aspects covered, there are still a lot of magic tools smashed on the light curtain, and the color of the light curtain gradually begins to fade. Only a voice in the formation could be heard shouting angrily, Du Zichao, you came to attack me Xuanqi for no reason. Dao, can't you provoke a war between the 2 factions? Brother Du laughed twice and said, Zhaoling Chao, Tonglimeng, endangers my Wuji sect disciple, you actually dare to take it in privately, is it the idea sent to you by Xuanling? A stout voice came from the formation, your promised sect spit blood, I'm, Tonglimeng. It's just a dozen or so loose cultivators, how can you provoke the tiger beard of your Wuji sect, really want to add a crime? No worries. Hearing a sneer, senior brother Lu said calmly, joke, this faction has solid evidence, where is it? Let you deny it, you are Zhang Zhihei, the boss of the Tongwei League, I will let you know the prestige of my Wuji sect today. Yan, Zhaoling Chao, if you insist on protecting the wanted people of this faction, don't blame me for being merciless, and you will have your own identity in the future. Send your elders to talk to your Xuanling faction. While speaking, the movement in his hand was not slow at all, the giant axe attacked 3 times in a row, and both times hit the light curtain. Zhaoling Chao knew that the Tongwei alliance was their fault, but Wu Zhizong was just taking advantage of it. I am afraid that today's affairs will be difficult to be kind, and I will no longer argue with the Promise sect, but only instruct the disciples of Shudao to resist. The Promise sect attacked. Chumo used the flying sword captured in the last battle of the woods, and the flying sword escaped an interception. The weapon took advantage of the trend to knock a top-grade magic soldier into the air, and then hit it on the light curtain. The tip of the sword was only 3 inches deep before it was bounced back, and the 2 brothers who led the team raised their hands to shine the light. The curtain wobbled, in stark contrast. The foundation building stage is already so much higher than the bone calcining stage, what will happen to those Jindan real people fighting against each other? Although he has experienced Dragon Ball World, Chumo also hopes to gain stronger strength in the 3-dimensional space and time. Chumo couldn't help but think about it. As for the ancestor of the gods, Chumo has not thought about it. At this moment, only Zhaoling Chao of the Xuanling faction in the formation could be heard screaming, and the magic weapon that was constantly resisted in the formation was heard. The magic soldier suddenly changed his direction, no longer entangled in the attack of the Promise sect, but aimed at the disciples of the Promise sect. Come. 280 This incident happened suddenly, and many disciples were in a hurry for a while due to their negligence. Several disciples could not resist and were injured. Chumo even saw 2 disciples who were stationed on the island following senior brother Du. He fell to the ground and saw that he was dead. Chumo was also taken aback, although he had reservations, but after all, the foundation was deep, and a flying sword made pure. If you are familiar with it, the attack speed is much faster than that of monks of the same level. Even the 9th floor cultivator is nothing more than that, so he avoided the magic weapon that was attacking him. After this counterattack, Chumo was also noticed, and two magic weapons attacked Chumo at once. Wong. Remember me.